Thank you to the organizers for, I think, organizing what is a very timely and relevant workshop. And thank you for inviting me. So good morning, everyone. I'm Rajeshwari, and I'll be talking about gaseous halos around galaxies. And this is an artist impression. Okay, this is, you can see the stellar disk containing stars and the ISM of the galaxies here. And what this artist imagines to be the surrounding or the immediate vicinity of a galaxy would look like based on our current understanding. So this is what we call as the circumgalactic medium, or the CGM, this gaseous halo. And over the last few years, based on both observations and theoretical model simulations, it is becoming increasingly clear that the circumgalactic medium, or the CGM, is an integral part of galaxy evolution and formation and evolution. And in order to, like a successful theory of galaxy formation and evolution has to incorporate the CGM observation, understanding of. Okay. And to give you an idea of the rapid progress that has been made in this field, while the techniques to probe the circumgalactic medium have been in place, well established for many decades, the field of CGM, how it is, how we understand it, the observational techniques, the importance of CGM to galaxy evolution has been, it's quite recent. Like when I was doing my PhD, towards the end of my PhD, let's say 2015, 2017, was when these papers and when this discussion regarding CGM, CGM was coming into prominence as a field of its own under galaxy evolution. And now that I've joined IUC and I'm teaching courses to MSc and PhD students, I'm happy to see that the CGM is included as a topic under galaxy evolution in the introductory to astronomy course. So it sort of indicates that this is now established by the community to be a part of galaxy evolution, and indicates the rapid progress made in this field over the last few years. So, okay, so what is the CGM and what is it in the context of galaxy evolution? So these are two images or slices of the universe as seen by the Eagle cosmological simulation. This is how the universe looks like in this particular simulation when we view it from the point of view of stars. So these are all stars, the stellar light from galaxies, and you can see based on our current understanding of galaxy formation, it forms what is known as the cosmic web, this filamentary-like structure. The same picture, or the same view of the universe when we look at it from the point of view of gas. So this is color-coded by gas temperature. You can see that there is gas all around. And again, it forms, it's not just a cosmic wave of galaxies, but rather it's a cosmic wave of gas and galaxies. So gas is an integral part. And the circumgalactic medium lies at the interface between a galaxy and the larger scale environment. Okay, so galaxies form at the nodes of these filamentary structures where multiple filaments intersect. Galaxies get their material for the growth, for the star formation, that is the gas, by accreting it from the filaments of this cosmic filament, from this cosmic web. And the CGM is basically the immediate vicinity of galaxies. So it's the interface between the galaxy's interstellar medium and the intergalactic medium cosmic web. And why is it so important, as I said, for galaxy evolution? Various processes which determine the life cycle of a galaxy, how galaxies grow by accreting gas from the intergalactic medium through the filaments of the cosmic web, also with interactions by other galaxies. So the accretion process, then stellar feedback, AGN feedback within the galaxy, it can eject material energy outside of the galaxies. These are shown by outflows here in this diagram. Some of this gas can fall back onto the disk of the galaxy as fountains or recycled gas. And what is not shown here, but as I said, there could also be interaction with other galaxies, the environmental processes. All of these they take place in what we define as the circumgalactic medium. And so all of these processes which leave an imprint on the star formation history and various other galaxy processes are, they are part of CGM observations. So by using CGM observations, one can put constraints on all these different processes and put constraints on different prescriptions and models, either rule out or indicate the need for new models of galaxy formation. So how do we study the CGM? It's always, we refer to it sometimes as the invisible cloak around galaxies. Why invisible? Because it's difficult to probe it. It has been difficult to probe it directly in emission because it's very diffuse. That is, the density of this gas is quite low compared to, say, the interstellar medium. Because of this low density, it's has been difficult to probe in emission, although I will show examples of detecting in emission towards the end of the talk. So the most well-established technique, which has been in place for several decades, is to probe this diffuse gas in absorption against a bright background source. Okay. And usually we use a quasar as the background source. So this quasar absorption line spectroscopy has been used extensively for decades to study the CGM. This is an example of an optical spectra of a redshift 3 quasar. And this, all these tiny vertical lines, if you zoom in on them, they are actually absorption lines from the intergalactic medium as well as the circumgalactic medium of intervening galaxies. So using this, the CGM sort of signatures are imprinted on, superposed on the quasar spectra. And by analyzing, fitting various models to these absorption lines, we can infer properties of the gas. But just studying the properties of the gas is not sufficient. We need to connect the properties of the gas back to the properties of the galaxies. So having a quasar spectra is not sufficient. What we actually need to do is link the CGM that we detect in absorption to the galaxies using spectroscopy. So we need to actually ideally carry out over a large, like multi-wavelength spectroscopic survey of the galaxies around the quasars for which we have spectra. And that has been an effort by several teams over the last few years. One such very useful instrument is an integral field unit spectrograph, because it allows us to get a full 3D view of the galaxy environment, galaxy population around quasars without any pre-selection or bias. When I say without pre-selection or bias, I mean if you go for a long slit or a slit spectroscopy, you take an image, continuum image, and then you select the galaxies based on continuum. So you're biased towards the galaxies which show continuum, which are tend to be the brighter or the more massive galaxies. So here you have a unbiased view of the galaxy. You get a 3D cube, okay? So shown here as an example. And the type of experiment that I'll be talking about, you will usually have a quasar in the center of your field of view, towards which you have high resolution spectra, and towards which, suppose you have detected some absorption line. So shown here is a magnesium absorption line. And then using the IFU data, you can identify all the sources. You can get the spectra of all the sources in the field around the quasar, and you can get their properties, and then do a cross-correlation analysis between the absorption lines and the galaxies. Right, so that's what I have been involved in using an IFU called as MUSE. So this is optical wide field, quite sensitive, I would say, one of the best IFUs currently in operation on the Very Large Telescope in Chile. And there have been, several large programs using MUSE to study the connection between CGM and galaxies. I have been involved in a few of them. And I'm just highlighting a couple of them. These are large, more than 100 hours of MUSE observing time in which I have been involved. And the goals of these programs are to study this connection between galaxies and the absorption lines, different tracers. So we use different tracers to study different phases of the gas. So CGM is now believed to be a multi-phase region around galaxies. And also there's evolution in properties with redshift. So across redshift. So I would just like to highlight one such, what I believe to be a key result from these studies is the connection of the galaxy environment with the CGM. One sort of technique or diagnostic, I would say, to study the CGM is called as the covering fraction. So the covering fraction is nothing but how much of the projected area around galaxies is covered by that particular absorbing gas, or like in this case, suppose magnesium absorption. How much of a projected area around galaxies is covered by magnesium absorption? It tells you about how prevalent that particular absorbing gas is around the galaxy and how extended the absorbing gas is around the galaxy. So this is a commonly used tool to study the extent and prevalence of CGM. We looked at the covering fraction of magnesium-2, which traces more low ionization gas phase, and carbon-4, which traces slightly more high ionization gas phase. And one of the interesting results we found was that there's an environmental dependence. The covering fraction of the gas around galaxies in groups is much higher, like 2 to 3 times higher than what you see in around less isolated or less in relatively isolated galaxies. And this is at redshift 1. So we looked into various possibilities, and one of the hypothesis that we came up with is that environmental interactions like, say, tidal stripping, ram pressure stripping, could be playing an important role even at such high redshifts, and stripping the gas, thereby extending the cross-section of such metal-enriched gas around galaxies in group environments. So a picture like this, where in the local universe, we can directly image the gas using, say, H121 centimeter emission over here. And we see in the local universe such complex distribution of the gas directly in emission in group environments. So something like this kind of effects could also be playing an important role at higher redshifts like redshift 1 and 3. And we have, with a PhD student in Milan, she has now extended this work to higher redshifts, redshifts 4, and we see similar environmental effects in different gas phases, even at up to redshift 4, with slight differences with redshift. But yeah, this environmental effect persists up to redshift 4. I want to talk about, so this is the most well-established technique to study the CGM, but one of the downside or disadvantages is that you get the information about the absorbing gas only along one pencil beam line of sight. What we can do is we can do a statistical analysis if we have several such sight lines. But another sort of way to do a spatially resolved study is if you have, for the same galaxy, if you have several background sources. So suppose if you have a background lenses or lensed arcs for the same galaxy, you can get like a spatially resolved information. Such configurations are obviously rarer, but I mean, if you find them, they are quite valuable. So these are some examples in the literature of doing spatially resolved absorption spectroscopy using gravitational lensed arcs, as well as gravitational lensed quasars, I think over here. And you can study how the absorption coming from the CGM of the foreground galaxy is varying over length scales. We have also recently looked at one such, like a few such examples. This is again a Muse data. You can see A, B, C. These are 3 gravitationally lensed images of a background quasar, of the same quasar. And we have identified various galaxies in the foreground. And these 3 spectra out of these 3 images, A, B, C, and we have identified different absorption lines of magnesium, carbon-4, and so on. And by correlating the properties of these absorption lines across the 3 sight lines, what you can do, we can infer is how the metal absorbing gas are correlated across different length scales. right? So for example, we can study how the fractional difference in the absorption strength varies as a function of projected separation. That gives us some idea about the coherence length scale of these kind of structures that we see in the CGM. And this is again at redshift 1. And what we find is that the metal absorbing gas, they become less coherent with increasing physical separation. We found a usually typical coherence length scale of about 10 kiloparsec for magnesium absorption. And there's also a difference between different ionization stages. So we found that magnesium is more, so carbon 4, which traces a slightly higher ionization gas phase, has slightly larger coherence length scale compared to, say, the less ionized gas phase traced by magnesium 2. So these are the kind of inferences one can make if we have multiple sight lines, like the spatially resolved study, possibly using gravitational lenses and multiple images. Okay, and the final way of probing the CGM that I would like to talk about is now directly mapping the CGM in emission. So I said it was challenging, and now thanks to technological advancements, it's now actually possible to have images like I showed in the local universe of gas distribution around galaxies. We are now starting to have make such images also at higher redshifts. For the CGM, I'm talking about optical again, focusing on the optical emission around galaxies. And this is also the most exciting and the new avenue of CGM studies. There have been recently like several such studies. I'm showing examples again from the MUSE IFU work. So these are H1 Lamin alpha emission around redshift 3 quasars detected up to like hundreds of kiloparsec. This is this is the first detection of extended Mg2 emission. So while H1 gas has been detected in emission from quasars and galaxies, the metal line emission has been more challenging to detect because they have low surface brightness. But this was the first detection of extended Mg2 emission. But like as I said, the metal line emission have been more challenging. There have been, I would say, a handful of such cases, and they have been detected around the more extreme systems like starburst, galaxy groups, and so on. So if you would like to understand how the metal line emission is around like the more average typical normal galaxy population, it will be tough to do it in individual cases. But what we can do, since now we have this large amount of deep IFU MUSE data, we can actually stack all the MUSE cubes, okay, and through stacking, get the average CGM emission around typical star-forming galaxy population at redshift 1. So that is what we did in this study. This shows over here the magnesium emission after subtracting the stellar continuum. And you can see that it's extended up to like 30-40 kiloparsec. This is the O2 emission line. And if you compare it with the stellar continuum emission at similar wavelengths, you can see that it's more extended, which tells you that we are detecting line emission beyond the stellar disk of these galaxies. So that is, we are detecting for the first time metal line emission, optical lines, beyond the stellar disk, that is from the CGM of the galaxies. And these are the surface brightness profiles. The blue and red are for the metal lines, magnesium and O2, whereas the black ones are for the continuum, stellar continuum. And you can see that the metal lines are more extended than the stellar continuum. So this was very exciting to me to see the CGM directly in emission. We did again, like in the case of absorption line, we looked at various dependencies like stellar mass, environment, and so on. And I'll just talk about the dependence on environment. So similar to how we see a dependence of environment when we do an absorption line analysis, here as well, we see that when it comes to emission as well, when we look at groups, we see slightly more extended emission in magnesium 2O2. These are not stacks now, these are now again individual groups, individual galaxies in groups around redshift 1, where you can see this extended a sort of filamentary-like structure. These are in O2, these two are in magnesium 2. So you see this sort of extended filamentary-like structure around these galaxies marked by this yellow crosses, which we think could again be signatures of environmental interactions like dam pressure stripping or tidal stripping, similar to what we see at a local universe. So this is very exciting, and what we are now doing is to get more information. What one can do is to go beyond single line detection. If we have able to get information on multiple lines from the same galaxy population, one can look at line ratios. So for example, recently at redshift less than 1, we have done the same exercise where we can detect O2, O3, H beta. And that gives you line ratios, which can tell you, put constraints on the ionization field, put constraints on the metallicity. You can model this line ratios, compare it with various photoionization models, shock models, which we did in this work. And we can put constraints on now the physical conditions like metallicity, ionization, velocity, so on. And one of the interesting things we find is that assuming the gas is photoionized, there is actually no significant gradient in the average metallicity up to about 30 kiloparsec, which is consistent with simulations which predict that feedback and interaction sort of work to regulate the metallicity gradients in galaxies. And just quickly, lastly, one of the ways again to sort of progress in this kind of work is to now start to model and compare the observations with simulations. So this is a work done by a postdoc working with me, where he has now try to understand and interpret the magnesium 2 emission observations using radiative transfer modeling. So he has developed this code and he has applied this to the observations that I had. And he has now inferred various quantities like the column density, the expansion velocity, and also how it depends on various galaxy properties like stellar mass and so on. So I will summarize with that. So I hope I have convinced you that the CGM is integral to understanding how galaxies form and evolve. And MUSE is one such instrument which is really sort of revolutionizing our understanding of how galaxies are connected with CGM using both absorption and emission line techniques. And I have shown how using these two different techniques, we can try to get a combined view of the CGM and galaxy connection. Thank you.
Okay. Questions? Yeah.
Very nice talk, Rajeshwari. So I had a question about the secreting CGM gas. So you may already know, right, like in Seyfert galaxies, for example, the small radio jets don't have any correlation with the orientation of the galactic disk. So we always, we deduce that the accretion disk doesn't know about the galactic disk orientation. So how does this accreting CGM gas and the, the accretion disk connect in some way? So is there some work which has been done on this, and what have they found?
Yeah, I did not talk about it here, but one can look at how it is distributed as a function of the orientation around galaxies. So this is a current view that mostly accreting gas, if it accretes along the disk, it will be located in the plane of the disk, and outflowing gas will mostly be along perpendicular to the disk. So there have been studies which have looked at how the absorption strength of different gas phases is varying with the orientation. There have been mixed results at different redshifts. But generally, like for example, using magnesium 2, people do find that there's this sort of bimodal distribution. So you have magnesium 2 absorption tracing what we think is the accreting gas along the disk. And there's another distribution peaking, which is like most likely tracing the outflows. But again, the dependence is on redshift. At higher redshift, maybe this may not hold because it's more chaotic. It may not be such a simple picture where you have a disk galaxy and, so it could be a more homogeneous and mixed distribution of gas. So yeah, so it depends also on which redshift, which galaxy population. But yeah, there have been studies on this as well. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for this very insightful talk. So I had
A question about your last point on the summary, because I have been following some work on the CGM in X-rays, so I just wanted to connect the whole, the bigger picture. So when you, for example, stack galaxies to find this emission around like more faraway galaxies, is there any difference on the kind, like the star forming or quiescent? Do you find any difference in signature?
Yeah, so again, I did not, for lack of time, did not show it. We do find dependence on stellar mass, star formation rate. So as expected, the strength and the surface brightness, when I say strength, I mean the surface brightness as well as the extent, does increase with stellar mass, star, and the star formation rate of the galaxy. I think in X-rays, what they find is that only for the more massive galaxy, I think greater than 10^10 solar mass is where they find detection. We go slightly, I don't know whether it is here anyway, we go slightly, we go up to like 10^8 stellar mass, so we go quite deeper, but even then we see a dependence on stellar mass, right? Increases with stellar mass, star formation activity. Also with environment actually, and for each of these we have tried to do like a control analysis. Like when we compare environment, we have tried to control for stellar mass, star formation to like check for the dependence on that particular parameter, and we do see dependence on these 3 parameters: stellar mass, star formation, and environment.
Yeah, it will be really nice to consolidate this picture for the different phases of the CGM, right? Because the cold, this is the cold phase. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, any more questions?
I was wondering about information on velocities to understand like maybe turbulence or some such thing in these spectra.
Yeah.
Is there such information that you can extract out of?
Yeah, from the absorption lines, yes, because these are quite high resolution. I have not been involved directly in such works, but there have been several such works which have, because we have resolution, the highest resolution we can get is about 6 kilometers per second. So people have done this kind of studies. I don't know whether I have, nothing in this work,
And
but yeah, there have been studies which have looked at turbulence and tried to like put constraints on what type of like power law, or I can give you details later.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I think, if there are no more questions, we can thank Rajeshwari again. And we thank all the speakers of this session.